Welcome back everybody to SoCal Segments, and I have a special feature for you today. This is the 2025 Redlands Strada Rossa, and this is the 11th year in a row that they have done this. So we just started this ride not too long ago, and I didn't want to record any of the road riding, so I cut that part out. We were only on the road for a minute or two before we got onto some gravel, and this ride is awesome because it's so much dirt. It's so much single track. Out of all of the gravel races that I've seen, this has the most single track that I've ever seen. In a gravel ride, that is. So go ahead and take a look. It's been raining all week, so it's very muddy out there right now. And this is following the riverbed, and this was actually where it was most slick. There were some chunky muddy sections that we had to ride through, and that splashed up a little bit, but not too bad. For the most part, it's very, very rideable, and I'm riding on 42 millimeter tires, and I had no problem whatsoever getting through any of it. There were some guys with some beefier tires, which probably would have been nice, but I feel like my 42s were probably perfect for the conditions that were out there right now. Okay, this section right here is the single track going up Trash Canyon, and so Trash Canyon had a pretty good grade double track leading up to this part, and so I just wanted to record the single track part because that's the coolest. And you can see we're at 10% grade right now. I'm in and out of 200 and 300 watt range going up this. That's my buddy Guy right in front of me, and he's a local there in Redlands, so he knows these trails like the back of his hand, and the whole route is gonna go all over Redlands, Yucaipa, Loma Linda a little bit, even into Calamasa and Up Glen. And so I'm wanting to stick with my buddy here because he knows his way around, and the trail isn't marked a whole lot. There are a few parts where the trailheads were marked, but for the most part you have to have this route downloaded onto your GPS so that you know which ways to go. And there are some connecting single tracks and different trails, and so it was best for me to keep somebody in sight that knew where they were going, knew their way around. And I have done a lot of these trails, but still I don't know the network well enough to be able to navigate this whole thing on my own. There were some parts where I found myself alone, where I relied on the GPS. I just had the breadcrumb trail on my GPS and I was able to get around. But luckily, especially on the downhills where it was fast, single track downhills, I always had somebody in sight that I knew the trails, and that was extremely helpful. It helped me to keep a fast pace for the entire thing. I was never worried about getting lost because of those two things. I had it on my GPS, and then I was keeping the locals in sight. Now I'm going to throw in some stats here on Trash Canyon, and so specifically the Trash Canyon full climb. And so this is a 1.52 mile segment. Average grade is 5.8%, and at the end of this segment I will have done an average of 231 watts for 13 minutes. And so I feel like that's a pretty good effort, although once we get into some up and downs on this single track, you can see that we're tire to tire. And if you look ahead, those guys all up there were about 15 that went up ahead while we were still on the double track, and you're going to see that we're going to be right up on them, and that's really going to slow down the pace and the watts on this particular segment. Look, we can't this is pretty freaking cool actually. Look how we're riding right through that little valley. It's like erosion on both sides of us, so we're riding right through the middle of like a wall, kind of. It's very cool. And so the single track is very fun when you're alone, or when you have some gaps between you and the people in front of you. You could really crush this pretty hard, and it's very difficult. I'm highlighting the Trash Canyon full climb right now because the single track, I didn't really get a great time on it, just because of this tire to tire action. But I was very happy with my Trash Canyon full climb, so 13 minutes on this. And on this segment, I will also give a shout out to the local pros who have dominated the leaderboard. So Thomas Fuller, he's got the KOM. He did this in 8 minutes and 23 seconds. Jonas Woodruff, also a pro in this race, also 8 minutes and 32 seconds. And then Brian M., I believe that's Brian McCulloch, and he did it in 8 minutes and 38 seconds. I particularly wanted to give those three a shout out because they are local pros, and they're at the top three of the leaderboard, and all three of them in this ride today. However, they were doing the 91-mile course, and I'm only doing the 60-mile course, which it varies slightly year to year, and so this year it actually ended up being 57 miles. I'm actually going to speed this up right now, so let's get through this segment. You can see this single track is really nice. It's the dirt is great actually. Surprisingly, after all the rain, I guess some people worked on the trail yesterday. Joe Sheldon, I believe, is his name, the guy who spent a lot of time yesterday in the evening fixing up the trail right before the race, because there was a whole lot of rain. But the dirt is nice and grippy right now. It feels great out there. Green on both sides of us, so really pretty. Sun shining through the clouds right there. It was a great morning, great start to the ride. There was a little touch of the wheels there. We had to back it off a little bit, run up that hill, right. And now we're back to the road. All right, so I kind of wanted to keep this a little bit of a road section in here because once we turn this corner, it's a beautiful overlook up into the sky with the sun, the clouds, and you could see a lot of the canyon out there and a lot of houses as well. So very pretty, very enjoyable ride. And so after that climb up Trash Canyon, we've got this little bit of a road climb, and so I'm still actually putting out some pretty decent watts. My heart rate's still up to 160. I haven't even recovered yet. And so I think once we turn this corner, it's going to level off a bit, and then we'll be able to recover a little bit better. Yeah, here we go. Back down to 2% grade. My watts dropped down under 200 for the most part. And then there's a little more single track actually before we get to this part, and it was pretty cool. It goes right along the side of a cliff. Sure. And then we had to drop down into, I guess, what is called Oakmont Park, and then we went through some neighborhoods and connected to this trail right here. And this trail is extremely pretty right now after all the rain that we had. So it's green on both sides of us. The trail is clean. It weaves around, and I'm gonna get some video of us getting some pretty high speeds flowing through here. And this is nice because it's good and flowy. It's fast. A little bit of ups, a little bit of downs, and it just feels good, refreshing, not too strenuous, enough to catch our breath and get ready for the next climb. There's actually one part in here that I wish I had left the video running for. We did a drop like right into the riverbed. It was probably a 2-foot drop. I came up on it pretty fast, unexpectedly. I did not know that was going to be there, and I just saw this drop, and man, I hit it perfectly. Like, went right off of it. The landing was soft because there was sand in the riverbed. The only thing is that I was in way too high of a gear to ride out of the sand in the riverbed. So I had to stop and downshift and spin my pedals a little bit before I could keep it going. And then there was actually a steep climb right out of that. So I couldn't really pedal up that either without any speed, without any and without my bike in the right gear. Okay, we have already covered a lot of ground, and now we are about to start the big climb. This is the biggest climb of the day, and this particular section that I'm entering is called Thunderbird's Climb, and this is a great one. The average grade on this segment is 6.1%, but there are some tight turns that get up to, I think, 30%, and so there's some tough sections of this particular single track climb. Now, there's a bigger segment that is Thunderbirds to the Bench, and that's the full climb up Crafton Hills. So starting from Thunderbird, where I just started at, and then climbing all the way up the single track, and then you pop out onto a fire road which takes you all the way to the top of Crafton Hills. And let me see here, that full climb, Thunderbird to the Bench, is 3.42 miles, 882 feet of elevation gain. Average grade is 4.9%. And so today, actually on this ride, I'm going to PR Thunderbird to the Bench, which I've only done it one other time, so that's not surprising. But what is pretty good is that this deep into the race, I'm still going to do it at a really good pace. I'm going to average 229 watts for 26 minutes to get all the way up Thunderbird to the Bench. So I feel pretty darn good about that effort. And as far as the single track goes, with how punchy this climb is, you can see that I'm in the 300 watt range for a lot of this. And my strategy is to be in and out of the saddle actually. So whenever I have traction with my tire, I get up out of the saddle, and it really gets my speed going up a lot more, and it also helps relieve some discomfort. So I've noticed that I feel sometimes I get caught in a rut sitting down for too long, too much time in the saddle, but I've noticed that since I've been spending more time out of the saddle, that it relieves a whole lot of discomfort, and I end up going a whole lot harder, a whole lot faster. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the grade, but just a second there ago, we were in the 15-16% range for a good little bit. We're leveling off right here, but it's still 5%. We're going to dip down just a little bit and then go back up to the climb. And there's actually a whole lot of riders on these trails every weekend, and so I'm not too sure if the people in front of me are part of my ride or if they're just random people riding Crafton Hills. And I know that the one in front of me is just a person riding Crafton, and the one in front of her also the same thing. But there are some people on gravel bikes a little ways up there, and I end up passing several of them. I think some were and some were not part of our Redlands Strada Rossa ride. But just a little bit more information on the Thunderbirds climb, this single track right here. So this particular segment is only 1.27 miles, 429 feet of climbing, average grade of 6.1%. Now I'm going to average 236 watts up it, so it's going to take me 11.7 minutes. And so Thunderbird all the way up to the bench is a little bit more than double that. And so again, this is a fun climb, a fun single track. I don't know if I've ever done this downhill. I know people do, but I don't get out to Crafton Hills very often, so I don't think that I have done it. If I have, maybe just once. But look at the view out here. We're getting way up here, and we're still on single track. You can see all of I think that's Ukaipa right there. And I love how the hills are just so green, with just a little tiny single track carved out on each side of the mountain. Now I'm going to speed this up again just so that we get through some of this, and I just want you to take in the scenery, the quality of the trail. It's a very clean trail. It doesn't have a whole lot of obstacles in the way. It's mostly just right on dirt, switchbacks, and nothing stopping you from climbing all the way to the top. This is a difficult climb from a grade standpoint, but from a technicality standpoint, it's very easy. I actually have a hard time getting past this guy right here, this guy on the mountain bike, and I keep trying to find the right opportunity to pass him, but this trail doesn't get really wide enough anywhere for me to sneak by him. And so when I think that I find a spot that I could do it at, I shout out to him, "Hey, passing on your left," and I am having a hard time getting past him. I started slipping down the side of the wall right there, but he slowed down so I could get past him, and then I was able to cruise on ahead. And I think that he was going the the speed that he was at because I was right on his tail. Because as soon as I passed him, I gapped him pretty good. Then I catch up to these gravel bikers, and so these are the ones that I'm unsure whether or not they're part of the ride. And I find out later that this guy right in front of me, he is part of the ride. And so I'm going to see them for most of the climb up the fire road as well. I'll pass some of them, and then we'll get a good little descending video going on. So right here is where we connect back to the fire road, and there's the fire road. So in case you've never been up to Crafton, it's a great place to do a lot of climbing, and if you've got the gears for it, then you could just pace yourself and chug your whole way up there, and it's pretty comfortable, pretty low technicality. Lots of other riders, lots of other people out there, hikers, runners, everything. So come out and enjoy this one. Alright, now I just crested the top of this hill, and so I passed the bench. I should have gotten the bench on film for you, but I'm going over the top, and so we're headed down, and we stay on the fire road for just a little bit, and then it gets to a little hub where you could take the trail several different directions, and the direction that we're going is going to be out to Grape Street. And so that's what the segment is a Grape Street downhill. But let's give you a better look at what the actual single track looks like. So this is the start of the downhill, and there's several of these hairpin turns. The trail's pretty clean, but it is bumpy, it's rattly. So by the time I finish descending this, my triceps are actually pretty sore because it's just a rattle the whole way down. And so actually not the whole way down, just this top part is kind of shaky. So a little bit of suspension on the gravel bike would be nice, but I am working with a carbon frame, so that's a lot better than using an aluminum frame. I'm sure that absorbed a whole lot of the bumps for me. Finally, down closer to the bottom, I caught up to these two guys, and this is where the trail gets a whole lot more smooth. You can see that the dirt is pretty soft looking, and we're just rolling over this, flowing pretty well. And so I'm not even going to try and pass anybody on this. The sag station's at the bottom of this hill, and so I'm just going to stick it out behind these two guys and coast all the way down. So you can see my watts are pretty low for the most part, just coasting. And it is there's a little technicality, some ruts here and there, but no big deal. I think anybody, even a beginner, could probably descend this, but the thing that might be a little bit sketchy for somebody is just knowing that you're on the edge of a cliff, especially on those hairpin turns. Like if you aren't using your brake or not very good at maneuvering your bike really well, then it might be a little scary being that close to the edge. But for the most part, this trail is pretty easy to descend down, and so I'm just cruising, having a good time, and enjoying the break on the legs, because man, that was a whole lot of climbing that we just did, going up Thunderbird and then all the way up to the bench. So you're gonna see right here, we're gonna pop out at the end, and there's the sag station right past this fence, I believe. Let's see it, and there we go. And they had a pretty good sag station, all the stuff that you would need. Refill on water, Gatorade, they had other fluids, and they had Coke, so plenty of stuff to refuel on. Now this section here is the next big climb. This is Wildwood Canyon. Now on Strava, the segment is called Cactus Trail Climb, and it's a 1 mile climb, 449 feet, with an average grade of 7.9%. And my time up this was my second best. I've only done it twice, but I did it in 11 minutes and 30 seconds. And let's see, my power was 218 watts average going up here. And it looks like right now I'm keeping it right around 200, plus or minus just a little bit, and I'm going pretty steady at that pace. So these two guys up ahead of me, I had caught them and rode with them a little while, but as soon as we got to this climb, they started gapping me a little bit, and they're gonna climb up this a whole lot stronger than I am right now. So this Wildwood Canyon, it's actually a really nice place for gravel because you can see that it's a pretty wide road. It's steady. There are 2 gates that you have to go over. So that's a little bit annoying. You gotta hop off your bike and get over those. But for the most part, it's a really clean road, great climb, and great to incorporate into a gravel ride. Also, at the top of this climb, you could actually take a right and go up Pisgah Peak, and that's one of the 3 big peaks in the area. There's Zanja Peak, Pisgah Peak, and Morton Peak, and so if you hit all 3 of those peaks in one day, man, that's a huge climb. So anyway, Pisgah Peak is a pretty nice one all by itself. That one just has a weird gate that you kind of gotta squeeze through when you're getting closer to the top. All right, I'm not going to show you this full climb because it takes a little bit of time. It's too much time to watch. But I do want to give you a rundown of the rest of the course that I didn't get on video. So once you go over Wildwood here, then you're gonna descend the dirt road and get down onto Oak Glen Road, which is an actual road. And so from there, we ride the road in and out of some different areas, and then we end up on the 38. And so at the top of Bryant and the 38, which is Mill Creek Road, you pretty much just cross the road and go down just a little bit, and then you hop onto some single track, and that follows a riverbed up the down the 38 actually for a good little ways. And surprisingly, there's a whole lot of single track in there, and it's rocky, it's bumpy, it's weavy, it's pretty flat, so that's nice at the end of the ride. But yeah, some interesting single track weaving around through that area, and so that pretty much parallels the 38. And then at the end of that, then you pop out onto some neighborhood roads, and the rest of the ride, we are pretty much on road. It can't be more than, I don't know, 5 miles or so from that point. It was pretty fast after that, pretty steady, and we did have one gradual climb, I guess. It seemed pretty flat, but at the end of this ride, it was still tough, keeping a good pace up it. All right, so that's what we have to look forward to in the gap of this video, as soon as I get to the top of this climb here. And I left this section of the climb in there because you could see that the grade was up to 13%. So the grade was ranging 10 to 13% there for a little while near the end. And this is the peak, or this is the top. You see those guys, they stopped to regroup with some of their friends who were still further back on the trail. Let's go ahead and jump to the end of the race. This is the final stretch you're about to see. That's my buddy Guy, and he was pounding on those pedals. He pulled me pretty much the entire road way back, and hats off to him because he was really pushing the pace. All right, and here's the finish, and we are done. All right, so I hope you enjoyed Redlands Strada Rossa number 11.